In the latest not always but all too often happenings, I found a post from a friend about a Forbes article that really sucked me in. I already don't like to comment or share things on headlines without getting at least a basic understanding of a topic. Even in the cases when the headline is worth mocking on its own, and this one definitely is, knowing about the article often adds to the inanity of the headline. In this case, I was going to include this in the Come See This Thing daily series of posts, so I thought, hey, let me do some searching, some double checking, let me see what else is out there, and Jesus Christ, I was not prepared for this. Have you heard of Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX? So this is the Forbes article if you're watching the video version, it's on the screen. This is also in the article. There's going to be links below to the blog post. You can find it on Substack, you can find it on WordPress, links to all that there. This is the headline. The Devil in Nerds' Clothes. How Sam Bankman-Fried's cult of genius fooled everyone. And this is by Forbes. I wanted to search for other stories about this crypto billionaire top Democrat campaign donor fraud, so typed top Dem donor into Brave to see if this was being covered from the political angle. Turns out this isn't uncommon for top Democrat donors, as ABC News reports about Norman Su, top Dem donor charged in massive scam. And with some of the searching on this on different socials that I've seen, some people already say this is another example of Democrat and Republican machinations. Sure, there might be similar issues like this with the Republican donors, but in current timeline, the Democrats are as steeped in shady money as the Republicans have ever been. Keep this political aspect in mind as I get back to FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. Here is an article that I found from the Washington Post that is titled Sam Bankman-Fried. This name is spelled F-R-I-E-D, so it could be fried, like fried fish, fried food, but I'm going to be going between Fried and fried, probably be saying Fried more often than not. Sam Bankman-Fried charmed Washington, then his crypto empire imploded. He founded a popular crypto exchange, amassing incredible wealth and political clout in just a few years. In 1 week, everything collapsed. And this is by Tori Newmeyer. Here's an excerpt from that Washington Post story. Sam Bankman-Fried, the 30-year-old wonder kid of cryptocurrency, spent tens of millions of dollars over the past year trying to reshape how Washington and the world thinks about finance. The crypto exchange he founded, FTX, had become an industry-dominating business in just 3 years. Valued at $32 billion as recently as January, he amassed political clout in an even bigger hurry, emerging from obscurity to become the second biggest Democratic donor in the midterm elections. This is the stuff that grabbed my interest. If you've been following any of my stuff, thank you very much. If you haven't, like, subscribe, wherever you're getting this stuff, a lot more content like this. I have a big interest in socio-political issues. So with this, I was like, wait, okay, so how much of the recent policy towards crypto is based on this scammer? How much more recent Democrat wins were funded by money scammed from people? Had some other questions, and delving deeper into this, just what a mess. Back to that Forbes article for another excerpt. His mystique was bolstered by his embrace of philosophies like effective altruism, which added a moral heft to his ruthless money-making. A rare facade of a do-gooder billionaire was maintained by lavish donations to professional sports teams and charities under the guise of effective altruism, and an unusually warm embrace of Washington lawmakers with large sums of political donations and calls for more regulation in an industry he helped build. Along the way, he raised more than $2 billion from investors like Sequoia, NEA, and Lightspeed Venture Partners, many of whom are now carving nine-figure losses into their balance sheets. So what I'm seeing here is a fraud scamster fools the eliterati and the regressives. He's platformed and promoted by them, enabling him to scam more people. He then donates millions to their campaigns. Then, days after election, it comes to light, and the Securities and Exchange Commission and other politicos then use their failures and collusion to claim they need more power because everyone was fooled, not just them. Who's buying this at this point? I don't really think they think anyone's going to buy this that's significant. This is the stuff that they put out. And how did this person get out there? I didn't really know about this person until my friend shared this thing. And then I got into this rabbit hole and went down. And I found this one video by Nas Daily, who is a big YouTuber, influencer type of person. He puts on people, platforms people, and he goes on. He flies from Dubai to the Bahamas to meet Sam Fried, who's living in a penthouse, massive headquarters, like apartment with 10 other people. This is going to come up again later. He's talking about how great of a person this is. Like, you see these other clips, he's on these events and all these wealthy people, he's being big upped and he's being put out there. And it's like, oh, look, he's so modest. He doesn't even need a Lamborghini. He has a Corolla. Yeah, he's also living in the Bahamas in a massive... Anyway, you also... This stuff is just... I don't know. It's check out the video. Links below. You can find that stuff. Okay, so the article says, the collapse has also underscored the lack of diligence performed by investors like Temasek and Tiger Global to ensure appropriate financial controls. None were on FTX's board. One of the investors told Forbes that they only had access to FTX's balance sheets as part of due diligence, which looked fine. The investors said they had no visibility into Almeida's operations, but saw no red flags because they saw large sums of tokens moving between the two firms all the time. That's one Forbes article, but then look at these titles of articles in the More from Forbes section that tipped me full into the rabbit hole. It includes one that says, the red flags on FTX we all seemed to miss. Again here they choose to use that we all, when for many folk that I know, spouting about climate change, veganism, pandemic type of stuff, and does Bankman-Fried need that amnesty from that too that was mentioned in that recent Atlantic thing, signifies some red flags of if not outright fraudulent behavior, but at least the willingness to say platitudes for the sake of currying favor. Another headline here mentions Stripe, Deloitte, Sullivan, and Cromwell among the 53 FTX advisors, vendors, and bankers weathering exchange's collapse. These are big names. These are supposedly the experts. These are supposedly people hiring the youngest and brightest people in these fields that are managing just billions and trillions of dollars, and these are the people who keep falling for these things. Is it everyone, or is it everyone these people know? Another aside for me, like hyphenated names already have me going, but not an outright red flag, because that's often something that the parents choose for the child, especially when it's an unmarried person. But check out how so many other supposedly in the know people were scammed with more from the initial article. Lavish donations to charities, not-for-profits, and sports sponsorships further crystallize the myth around Bankman-Fried. For one deal, he promised $17.5 million to UC Berkeley in cryptocurrency for the naming rights of their stadium. He gave a reported $10 million towards a partnership with the Golden State Warriors, plastering FTX signage throughout the team's San Francisco arena. He then signed a 19-year deal to rename the Miami Heat's home court FTX Arena. UC Berkeley called FTX a great partner for Cal Athletics, but said it's monitoring the situation and will determine any next steps if they become warranted. The Golden State Warriors said they have no news to share. Regarding the FTX partnership, the Miami Heat said Friday that they're finding new naming rights partner. So Nas Daily says, oh, he drives a Corolla again, but declines to mention that he also has his company's name emblazoned on a professional sports arena and on courts and things like that. Like, what's going on with these people? These people just intentionally just gaslighting people. This is what they do. I know this whole honesty is the best policy thing is not something people actually live by. It's a thing that people just say out there, and it's not definitely a thing that people do in practice. But some of this stuff is just absurd. It gets to absurdity. He drives a Toyota Corolla, so he's just like one of us. So now checking Bankman-Fried's Wikipedia bio to see more about this man of the people. What people? I don't know. Are you the people that he's a man of? I don't know. This is who Bankman-Fried is. He was born in 1992 on the campus of Stanford University into a family of academics. Born and raised to an upper-middle-class Jewish family in California. He is the son of Barbara Fried and Joseph Bankman, both professors at Stanford Law School. His aunt, Linda P. Fried, is the current dean of Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health. His brother, Gabe Bankman-Fried, is a former Wall Street trader and the director of the nonprofit Guarding Against Pandemics. He attended Canada/US Math Camp, a summer program for mathematically talented high school students. He attended high school at Crystal Springs Upland School in Hillsborough. From 2010 to 2014, Bankman-Fried attended the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is MIT. There he lived in a co-educational group house called Epsilon Theta. In 2014, he graduated with a degree in physics and a minor in mathematics. So right here, you see all this stuff? This is the man of the people. This is the humble man. He's not somebody who came from money or things like that, and he still has money and he has this position. No, because this person happens to be virtue signaling and things, we don't mention his well-off background. But when it's people on the wrong political aspect of it, then all of a sudden, yes, yes, yes. And yes, you can say there's certain things that people signal to the people on the right and say things, oh, we're building a wall, and then give them money, and then the wall doesn't come. You're like, oh, where did our money go? There's stuff like that. But then there's also stuff on the other side of vegan, we're building a wall against the future climate, and then people just give money. And so these things kind of happen. But we're staying here. Let's check out more of his background. So along with being Stanford professors, both his parents, his mother in specific, this is what they say about her in her Wikipedia. She is a co-founder of the political fundraising organization Mind the Gap, which advocates for progressive political candidates and funds Get Out the Vote groups. Now, a small aside here. When you hear people doing these get out the vote kind of groups and things like this, why did certain people, who do you think most people involved in encouraging more people to vote expect the people who go out to vote to actually vote for? Why do people just assume if more people vote, we're going to vote to the left? Why is that the general assumption? If it's a woman kind of organizing thing, how come people just in general, why is there such a discrepancy between female and male voting patterns? We're all kind of the same, and there's no actual reasons that there's gaps in different things like the STEM gap or the supposed gender pay gap where they pick different jobs and work different hours. That's nothing at all. We're all the same, so it's nothing you can actually be parsed out by these things, right? Now, at this point, I was still in the rabbit hole. I was like, okay, so yeah, she was in politics before, and now she came to politics now, and then now Bankman-Fried was just here, and the Democrats in 2022. I didn't know about these other stuff, but you should be encouraged, right? That it turns out that Sam Bankman-Fried had a relatively diverse set of people running FTX and Alameda boondoggle to show that it's not just, and I bet in this situation, some people will be referring to Sam Bankman-Fried as a white male, might be going to SBF and saying that sometimes too, instead of Sam. No, I think I will be trying to say Sam Bankman-Fried. I haven't said Fried yet. Let's go. Sam Bankman-Fried for the next couple of times. So I bet some people will refer to Sam Bankman-Fried as white in this situation and not say he's a minority as being part of the Jewish community. So they're not going to say it's a white male thing. Sam Bankman-Fried is a white male. It's not just white males who can do this, but rather anyone can be a scammer. Women, people of color, scammers of color, scammers of color, socks. So there's socks over there and things like that. So there is scant evidence that this sort of altruism that is virtue signaled by certain sort of people and approved by the eliterati and the MSM, mainstream media, and those people, it was kind of the same thing, right? Has any correlation to actual financial success or generally positive governance of anything. I keep hearing these reports and saying things like, oh, the companies that have more women on the board seem to earn better. Or maybe these companies have a lot of money and then they have the affordability, the ability to actually say, okay, now, since we're not so focused on actual results of things, we have all this extra cash, we can go follow these affirmative action sort of things. They get to a certain point where there's enough social pressure for them to have different campaigns against them. How come you're not working on this? How come you're not doing this? You're getting high enough in a level to actually bid for high enough things where governments and things like that say, in order for you to bid for this, you have to do this. You have to work towards this kind of thing. So that's how it actually happens. Because have you actually seen, because who is stopping the people who need to be on these diverse boards from starting their own companies and growing them up from the bottom? Hey, maybe Hero is an example of some people actually doing this. Because anyone that has been paying passing attention to the global sphere right now, I am personally a globalist. I'm a free market individualist, globalist. I encourage and think the world is better the more people can freely associate with each other. Freedom of association is a key thing to me. Discrimination is a key thing to me. I should be able to discriminate and say, I do not want to work with this person right here because they don't like me, because they don't do things that I appreciate. And if you have a more free market where I can say, okay, this person has a sort of monopoly in this one location over these things, but if I'm able to go across borders, go to other countries, use the internet and contact other people, then I can work with these other people in those locations, so maybe they can ship the things to me, or I can move to that location. Those are things that I think are definitely positive, but what is being done right now is not that. That's not leading to that sort of thing, and this whole thing with SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, and FTX, and Alameda, and there's going to be links also below. You can find more info, because there was three companies, FTX USA, it was FTX, there was Alameda, and all those three companies kind of worked together under Sam Bankman-Fried and his cohort of people. So Sequoia, which is a big, massive company, they were people who were bigging him up. They were investing him, and this is by Hans Mahnke. Need my friend Steven to kind of tell me the spelling of this. But he posted this thing with Sequoia Capital, which is a big kind of company. These companies do things and then other companies follow suit and they kind of just go along and other people are like, oh, if Sequoia is investing, I'm going to invest into too on their smaller level. But these companies also control a massive amount of other people's money and invest into these kind of things. These are those too big to fail sort of type of things. So they had this one article saying Sam Bankman-Fried has a savior complex, and maybe you should too. Savior because of the things he was signaling. They've taken that article down. This article by Adam Fisher was posted on September 22nd of 2020, and in the thread of it, like Adam Fisher actually went on and was like, yeah, like I kind of did a whoopsie there, which I guess some kind of kudos for it, that he actually came out and said that. He's like, it's cringy in retrospect, but I'm not quitting my day job to become a tech investor, I'll tell you that. No, you're just out there posting this stuff. Isn't this that misinformation, at least misinformation, if not outright disinformation? Is this the stuff that we're supposed to be so worried about? Is this the stuff that Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama and former President George W. Bush are going to have some sort of conference about misinformation and disinformation right after Donald J. Trump gives his special announcement here on Tuesday? He's probably going to declare, and then these people will come out and do this. Are they going to mention this kind of stuff? How much money have they gotten from it? Regardless, for now, the internet still doesn't forget, and there's an archived version of this article. If you want to find that, you can check that out for yourself. But back to the rabbit hole that I was in. So found out about his history, and now was discovering more about Bankman-Fried's mom, specifically with her company. And check this excerpt out from my Vox story. Inside the secretive Silicon Valley group that has funneled over $20 million to Democrats. With a subheading, there's a reason you haven't heard of Mind the Gap. Its raison d'etre is stealth. So this is the excerpt. There are many middlemen on the left who have tried to take advantage of Silicon Valley's new political energy. But few are proving to be as unusual as Mind the Gap in both its message and its personnel. The group operates in a cone of secrecy, often exhorting its donors to keep their information secure. It has no website or presence on social media, and its leaders don't mention their involvement in their professional biographies on sites like LinkedIn. That's not by accident. The raison d'etre is stealth. One person with ties to the organization told Recode. But yeah, there you have it. The raison d'etre is stealth. This is what they do. Nothing to hide here. It's not because the Democrats can keep saying that they want money out of politics to keep it pure and uncorrupted, so they don't want their names known. No, it's because if the names are known, then Republicans will also invest in their opponents and know their strategy. I am shocked. Shocked. So shocked that the child of a parent involved in this sort of organization has been found to have been scamming people, then giving donations to causes and Democrats to hide behind. Maybe you'll say that just like Hunter Biden, it's not like his parents could have known what he was up to. I'm sure he was probably also like the smartest person his parents have known. But this is what parents kind of say. I don't really hold it against Biden or other people. That's kind of what they do. Yeah, maybe. But is that good parenting? Are these good people? When you just have no clue that your kids are scamming folk for billions? If so, then why should this sort of parents, these sort of people, this sort of individuals be trusted to teach other kids? These are teachers after all. What are they teaching the other kids? Do they know other things about the kids? And we'll talk about the teachers about free plus things coming out later. That's also going to come up. Remember that. Why should these sort of people have power over nations? Because not only are these sort of teachers teaching people that are hired by companies like Sequoia and these other people that work for people like Fried and these FTX sort of things that go out there and work in international organizations and things like this and do the different voting, but they also are people who are presidents of the United States of America involved, hired in those kind of things, and the parents of those kind of people are the ones who are like, yeah, if Biden can't really deal with his kid, know what his kid is doing, how is he supposed to know things about the rest of the world and what other kids are supposed to be doing? Why? Why are people still buying this stuff? Even if you had the most excellent sorts of human beings doing these things, why should they have the power to do these things that affect so many other people? So even though Mind the Gap was hiding this stuff, keeping it secretive with its raison d'etre, it's a good thing that there are sites like Influence Watch that lists the people involved in this sort of thing. And you can find a link also in the article that I posted with this where you can find the whole listing of the people in there. Then this is when I found out that Vox article was from 2020, because I was like, okay, maybe this is stuff about the 2022 election. Then I found out that Mind the Gap was part of the fortification of that previous election, then I found this, another excerpt from it. Anything could happen between now and next November to change the picture significantly. But we have no control over most of the things that will happen, the group told Donor in its year-end memo last month. As ever, the question for us is, what can we influence, and where will money make the biggest difference? Now at this point, tinfoil suit was starting to come out. So these are spooks. This could be an op. I'm not even talking like big, shadowy people in the back, but just regular people who are regularly found to be finding and running operations, maybe to get into certain locations and find certain information and then be safe enough to actually control something in the background. Because I think some of this will be told to me once I actually see what sort of punishment that Sam Bankman-Fried and all the other people actually are subjected to. Because the person is relatively well off. He's connected parents. Like he's going to be as simple as siesta and club fed, which also leads to some more draconian control of the majority of the crypto markets that are genuine, because that to me is going to be like, okay, that seems like it could have been organized from the beginning. We'll see what happens to this. But here are a few more red flags to me. He was very buddy-buddy with certain politicians, a lot of politicians you can find pictures of. Here he is with Maxine Waters, who is a congressperson from California. Again, Maxine Waters, I think she is politically astute. She's sly. I don't know if she's the most intelligent person, even in her youth. She's getting older out there. Does she really know who this person is, or did somebody just tell her, okay, this person has donated a whole bunch of money to you, take this photo up with him? I think that could be just like what it was like right there. Next, let's say you will owe nothing and be happy. Folk are at the World Economic Forum with Klaus Schwab, who just constantly say things where I'm like, did they just say that out loud and people are cheering sort of things? Because again, I understand I look at things in a rather unusual way, and I try to get out of my echo chamber and realize that a majority of the people in the world do not see things the way that I do, because people are diverse, and the diversity is the thing that actually makes us stronger and interacting in different sorts of ways. But these people come out and they have the greater good kind of things, and this is what they posted on there. And it's a simple thing. They posted this thing like FTX is a cryptocurrency exchange built by traders for traders. FTX offers innovative products, including industry-first derivatives, options, volatility products, and leverage tokens. It strives to develop a platform robust enough for professional trading firms and intuitive enough for first-time users. I'm not saying this is direct influence that they were involved in this. I think a big enough organization like the World Economic Forum and people related like this kind of post about anyone who gets some kind of significance. Like there's some politicians who are just, oh, these are world leaders, these are young leaders. You don't really have to do anything. Like I've been up for applications in different sorts of publications that come out and say you've done something. So just being mentioned by them does not necessarily mean they were in control and involved with you. I think you look more to what the people are doing, but I'm sure it did help that he was talking climate change and all these other things that are in line with some of the things that the World Economic Forum is behind. Next, you have this from CoinDesk. It says Ukraine partners with FTX Everstake to launch new crypto donation website. FTX is converting crypto contributions to Ukraine's war effort into fiat for deposit at the National Bank of Ukraine. For some people, a lot of people, they just support everything with Ukraine. Talking bad about Ukraine right now is horrible. It's saying you're a Putin shill and things like this. I have been suspect about this to begin with. I am not for these foreign aid. Foreign aid in the best of times is very questionable and does strange things to the countries that this aid is sent to. It's normally taking money from the less well-off in developed countries and giving it to the small percentage of the most well-off in developing countries, and that's at the best of times. And this is not going to be an exception to this. I think what FTX was doing was helping convert people who actually donated to the Ukraine in cryptocurrency. They were converting it to actual cash. So that money, I think, has been given out directly to the Ukrainians already. I don't think the Ukrainian government and the people involved over there are losing any actual money directly, because I don't think they had too much donations still in crypto on the actual FTX at the time, but don't quote me on that. Again, here you have another mention from CoinDesk about the cryptocurrency CEO who donated the second largest amount to Joe Biden's campaign. I do not know how much the people who are campaigning actually check where their donations are coming from. I don't think it really matters. I don't expect Joe Biden or anybody else involved in the campaign to be forward and say, okay, now that this money has been given to us, we're going to find a way to give the money back. If anything, they'll say, okay, since we feel so bad we did this, now we need to actually even push the regulations even stronger and more. So this is not done again in the future. This is a thing that's happened. Now, here there's that symbiotic relationship between the government, the public sector, and the private sector, different corporations and things like that, where there's regulatory capture where someone's like, okay, if these people are regulating, I can pay these people so they keep other people out of this industry. But even stronger is the whole thing where if this company is organizing who can actually get a certain job, I don't think the person of average intelligence actually thinks these so-called so evil, money-hungry corporations would shirk to actually say, I can pay this one politician and lobby these people $5 million, and that means they'll set up a regulation, set up some job, protect a certain industry where I'll be able to get a tender for $100 million. Who would not do this? Who is thinking like these companies are not going to actually do this? This happens on the regular. Bankman-Fried had recently promised that he was going to give millions and millions more. He said he was going to, I think somewhere where he said he was going to spend up to $1 billion. He would be the first person to have spent $1 billion personally on an election in 2024. Does not matter if he's taken out of this. I think they can find that money somewhere else. One of those places is these sort of public-private things where the people who've been working in the public sector now open charities and foundations. And we have over here Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and former President Bill Clinton, sitting here on the stage with Bankman-Fried, I think we're to switch back to Fried now, on the stage looking over, having the talk. Yeah, these are just people. These are the people to trust. These are the people who know what to do. Like, they're just getting them up on the stage. Yeah, you can do that. These are the people who we're supposed to look up to. These are our social betters. Why should those who get fooled by Bankman-Fried's cult of genius still have the power over decisions that affect millions, if not billions, of people? Assuming they're right, that this article and these Forbes sort of people are correct, and now they're admitting, and now you know that Bankman-Fried got them, he fooled them. But no way that Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus over at the World Health Organization could have the incentive to not be 100% on the up and up. Or if he wasn't, let's say he was shady and things like this, there's no possible way he would be able to actually get anything over on anyone, right? No one would actually just go along with him. These organizations and people are totally legit, totes legit. How dare you question anything about Ukraine? It's not like the same organizations and people who said Ukraine was one of the most corrupt countries in Europe are now sure that despite billions being accounted for already during a war, it's not something you should be concerned about. After all, Hunter Biden is only the first son and not a politician. His father, the President of the United States of America, that previously may have had Ukrainian officials fired with a carrot of aid dangling, he's a wise man. He's a wise man who knows that his son is the wisest man that he knows. As I said, that's something people say. I've said this before about people. A lot of people literally mean things figuratively, especially when they say literally, you can say, okay, that's probably being figurative. It's just the way people speak, especially Americans, and especially Americans about politics. So when you have somebody as politics as usual as Joe Biden, I don't really take most of the stuff that he says to be honest. I understand he's a tried and true politician. He's as politician as a politician has ever been to be a politician and politicking. So the things that he says, whatever. But the things that he does, that's another case. And if he was aware of any dicey stuff that his son was doing, then Joe from Scranton would have tossed the carrot back and then broken out the stick, just as he's now mentioning that bad billionaire Elon Musk over at Twitter needs to be looked into because of the Saudi ownership in the company that now he bought the stake. They helped fund some of these things. He got money from a bunch of people. Actual Bankman-Fried tried to actually give Elon some money. I think it was like $5 million. And Elon was like, oh yeah, he had my BS meter, so I did actually take the money from him. I don't know how accurate that is. Elon also kind of says some stuff. These people are salespeople. I get that. But now that the Saudi ownership is saying, Joe Biden was really slow. He's like, yes, Saudi ownership, need to look into that. Can't do a Joe Biden voice right now, but I can't do it ever. I don't know if I can do it right now. But because when Saudi ownership that was there before Elon Musk bought it, one of the Saudi princes, there was also Saudi ownership that was one of the major shareholders of Twitter. That was not an issue. But now that Elon has bought it by borrowing money from some of the people being invested in it, now it's an issue. And the Biden administration did not ask the Saudis to slow roll the changes in the oil markets to kind of help what he's doing in the elections. Also, Elon Musk is not already in partnership with the U.S. government on several type of things. Like, this whole thing is just a quagmire. You can kind of see why this rabbit hole just had me sucked into there. And I was deep into it at this point. And I was thinking about how in this whole thing, yes, there's probably million people, maybe 1 million people directly affected with this. A lot of smaller kind of people who put their entire life savings into this. But this article from Forbes, these people are talking about that everyone was fooled. Who are they talking about? They're talking about the very same people who are going to be in the very same positions of power and influence, with maybe a little less fiat currency to their net worth, who will still be considered part of the eliterati after all this gets ironed out, where the chips may fall, or just once this gets relatively resolved. This isn't even figuratively life-ending for these people, but could be tens of thousands of people who this is their entire life savings. And for some, literally, it could be so. And if you're one of those people, or if you know anyone like that, please reach out to people who can listen to you. This is something you can get over, as dark as it is. And with something like this, sure, you see folk like Anthony Fauci who may get toted out into congressional investigations over the next few years if the Republicans manage to hold on to it after these so-called multiple days of counting things. They might actually still lose the House of Representatives, which is just comical. Again, who's buying the stuff? I don't even think they care if you're buying it. They're not even selling it. They're just putting it out there and saying, this is what you're going to take, you peasants. So if you're the sort of person to actually be listening to this, to have even found this, to be still listening to this despite all the stuff that I've said so far, thank you very much for listening to begin with. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your thoughts and your time to take to listen to this. But as I'm saying, we can hear things, but hearing things is not listening to things. Seeing things is not understanding things. You can actually just experience something through your senses without actually absorbing it and understanding it, having a cognitive actual reaction to it, or you can have a different cognitive reaction to it. So for the sort of person like you, dear listener out there, you're not the sort of person who really thinks that he's going to lose, someone like Anthony Fauci is going to lose any speaking gigs off of anything that might happen if Rand Paul and those people can't give investigations to him. You don't think he's going to be denied his pension, let alone docked anything from the multiple years of being the highest paid bureaucrat in the United States, if not the entire world, while his utterings and behavior resulted in the endings of tens of thousands of people's livelihoods. You don't actually think that's going to happen. At this point, you are probably somebody who already recognizes that you have to take it upon yourself to not be influenced by things they may be saying and doing. These sort of people like the Fauci, sort of people like the Bankman-Fried, sort of people involved in Forbes and writing these things. But also share this kind of content to other people out there. If it's not this video, if it's not this actual audio, if it's not this kind of thing, find actual articles out there and share it and let more people know this information. I didn't know this information before. I just kind of fell into this rabbit hole, and now I'm making this video. I put these articles out there, and now you're listening to this, and you can give this other information. Maybe you share it to like 10 people, and then one person hears it, or one of those people shares it to somebody else, one of those shares it to someone else, and then that other person gets an epiphany where they find a better way to message these things about the actual reality of the world to many, many more people than we can probably reach on our own. That's how this thing works. That's how this thing improves. Because when it comes down to it, whether up, whether fraud, whether scam, whether in the know, there is no evidence that people need empirical evidence to believe that they have empirical evidence for their beliefs. But you found yourself here, as I mentioned. So you can get this thing, you can get it out there, and the vast amount of humanity has also never been in this position to get this much of a wealth of information and be out there. Even for the fact that this Bankman-Fried could actually amass billions of dollars enough to scam these people in that short amount of time and influence the world this much, the inverse can be done. Other positive things can be done. We can counter these things in a lot faster and a lot more effective a way than we've had in the past, because the scammers have always existed. People taking advantage of people have always existed. Misinformation has always existed. People have always been trying to disinform you, but the ability to counter that and get over it has also exponentially increased, and that is an exceptional kind of reality. That's something that kind of keeps me happy about these things. Now back on to more of what Nas Daily was in that fluff piece about it for the Bahamas crib. Now we're going to do more of his crew and his people out there. And Tom Honzik posted this thing about one of the partners that he was actually living with in this Bahamas crib. And you've got to see this video for yourself. And this is like, it's Caroline Ellison being interviewed by somebody, I guess, at the Bahamas crib. I don't know. It's a white wall in the back. And this is the thing. My wall is covered with all kinds of things. I don't understand people who just live in white walls. You guys can be minimalist. Put something in your walls, please, people. These walls, well, paint them different colors. Why you just live in a white wall type of thing? Why would people live in the... Regardless, she has this one line in here where she kind of just laughs like, oh, I don't even use my math for this thing. I don't do that. And then she's asked about things that they've lost a lot of money in. And she kind of scoffs and says, maybe I'm not going to get into that, how much I've lost in doing different speculative kind of behavior. And I don't think anything that she had done previously that she decided to not mention was the sort of losses that she's involved with as the CEO of Almeida in losing this up to 40 billion now, could be more. We'll see what's actually going to happen with that. But here is a bit about CEO of Alameda Research being the 28-year-old Harry Potter fan, Miss Caroline Ellison, and this is from eFinance Careers. Before joining Alameda as a trader in March 2018, Ellison spent 19 months as a junior trader at Jane Street after graduating from Stanford University with a bachelor's degree in mathematics in 2016. In a podcast 2 years ago, Ellison explained that Jane Street was her first job out of college. A diehard mathematician and Harry Potter fan, born of two economists, I think there might be a dropped word here. It says Ellison, so I think Ellison said she hadn't wanted to go into trading, quote, just didn't know what to do, unquote, with her life. So I just don't know what I'm going to do in my life, and then I end up working for this massive company that has $40 billion, living with my boyfriend that he puts me in charge of the company that he also founded, and we're doing all this money in the Bahamas and things like this. This is life. This is life for some people. So I was really down this rabbit hole at this point, and this could just be wealthy kids effing around because they know they'll never need to find out, and being as connected as they are, not subject to some of the sort of repercussions that the peasantry are. But as I mentioned before, this could also be an op. In the lowest of my times, I had this outright mental crisis. I've mentioned this before, I think in one of the videos I was talking about weight and things like this and how I came out of that and tried to improve my life, got more into self-knowledge, became more self-confident, and realized I was kind of suspicious about certain things and maybe I should have been suspicious about those things and some people were telling me not to be suspicious. So I came to this realization that first scared me at that time, but it soon turned around. And now it's something that has helped to make more sense of the world that my reality talent goes through. It was that worse than any conspiracy theory, worse than any conspiracy theory I could think of at that time and have thought of since, is that there is no conspiracy. This is just the best that we can do. The way the world was, this is just the best that we can do as a species. This might initially seem nihilistic. Some people think, okay, you're losing your faith in God. You need that eternal good person looking out for us in the background. But no, there's nothing to that. There's no eternal evil. There's no eternal good. But at the same point, if there's no shadowy people with relative omnipotence mucking things up in the background, that also means that they're not there to thwart us from improving our lives on an individual level. Starting with yourself, starting with the people around you, the decisions you make, and then working outside. If something bad happens, does not necessarily mean it's like this karma or this evil that's focused down on you, they'll just beat you down. No, you can reach out. You can reach out to other people who will help you out of that. It's how I look at the world now, and it's fit what I've seen so far, even with this situation. Like, can I see this as just being humans doing human stuff, be it right or wrong? Circumstances piling up to this mess? Yeah. Look at the politics of some of the people involved and the benefits they had of being involved in these things. The basics of the familial relationships on the personal level and the social ones and the professional things that they had to benefit, then yeah. In the mutated environment of this state-run, fiat currency-fueled economy that we find ourselves in, then certainly this could just happen. It could seem like, it was a plan, it could seem like it was just a thing that kind of happened. You know, no need to imply malice and things like that in a place where stupidity can kind of just fit in. That's the kind of thing I think with this. This is just an actual, it's not random. You can see why these things happen. Everything doesn't happen for a reason, but there are reasons that everything happens. And on top of that, I still firmly believe that pretty much everyone wakes up in the morning and convinces themselves that today I'm going to do the things that are good for myself, the people that I care for, and the greater world at large. Now, there's certain things I would say I'll need to do this that's not necessarily positive for this greater good in the future, but I don't think there's people out there who are actively just trying to just mess things up for the sake of messing things up because they prefer things to not work more than they prefer things to actually work. The things that they might be trying to destroy, they have convinced themselves that those are things worth destroying and preventing some more positive thing of working well in the rest of the world, if that makes any sense to you. But that being said, as I mentioned, there is a contingent of people that will take advantage of happenings and try to harness the chaotic energy that they might find out there to their own benefit. Now, some of these people also do have this greater belief in these greater evils and greater goods that will push them to do some things that they might not personally do if they had my general mindset and like, okay, it's still individuals and people kind of doing things. There's this one saying that Christopher Hitchens, the late Christopher Hitchens, said, where it's like paraphrasing, said something like, name me one good thing that a believer in any religion can say that a non-believer can can't. And then you probably can't think of something because you could probably you make a statement. Can you personally think of one? I couldn't think of one. Still haven't been able to thought one. Still haven't found someone actually say it. But name me something that is outright evil, that is just considered by most people to be extremely negative, that a believer would say, a believer in some sort of religion, some sort of deity, some sort of extra supernatural force out there could say that somebody who doesn't believe in all that stuff could not. And I think right there you can already think of some. And in my estimation, a lot of the things that Bankman-Fried was signaling out there are part of a metheist religion, which is modern day kind of secular faith and things like this, where people just believe the experts, believe this is the way, it's settled science, that kind of related sort of zeitgeist that the traditional theologies have kind of morphed into in current timeline. Back to more of the flags, back to more of Fried's crew, and a bit more about Miss Ellison here. This is posted by Milk Road. This is an interview that they were giving, and it's kind of just like camera down sort of thing, and giving a talk to somebody who's kind of looking aside. Apparently, allegedly, there was some involvement with drugs being taken. Bankman-Fried was a doubter, said, okay, you should test out these sort of things and see these effects and find out your best kind of concoction of mixtures of things. These people seem to be taking things kind of willy-nilly, but hey, they were making all these sorts of money, so yeah, we gotta listen to them. They're celebrities, we're going to celebrate their lives. So this is the CEO of Alameda. The person posted how is this real life. You should check out the clip for yourself. She turns at one point, and one of her glasses doesn't have an arm. And I thought, was it just one of those armless things where you can have like the nose kind of holding? But no, the arm kind of just fell off. And I'm not somebody who cares too much about accessories and fashion and things like that. So maybe I was like, okay, but you didn't really hold that against them. Maybe she's still effective at these. But yeah, it's this kind of odd look. So you have that, and people say, "Go, these were down-to-earth, one-of-us sort of people." Don't ignore their wealthy, upper-middle-class backgrounds. They're just one of the people and things like this. And I think with the Democrats, this is their key constituency. These are the people that are the one of us. So to them, I can understand, like, yeah, these are the people that we're kind of marketing. These are our crew. But it was also marketed in a different sort of way. Now, Wall Street Silver posted this commercial with Tom Brady and Giselle doing an ad for FTX. This might have been in the Super Bowl. I saw another ad with Larry David, who was just playing himself. This is himself. He's playing himself. This is Larry David. He's like, I'm not going to invest in this. But this commercial, Tom Brady's calling different people and investing into this. I think they might have been paid in shares in FTX somehow to do this, but it's him and Giselle, his ex-wife. I don't know if their divorce is actually finalized at this point. But this was relatively recent, and commercials are just cringe to me. I don't necessarily watch a lot. I don't watch television here in Kenya. Sometimes I do, and maybe I'll see some ads, but I normally just switch the channel. I'm not watching too much of it. I watch a lot of streaming stuff online, listen to a lot of audiobooks, podcasts, things like this, where even in podcasts, I normally skip the commercials and whatever you're listening to here. You can skip through and not going to be offended with that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to go more from like the value for value system that No Agenda and other people have done, where if you find something valuable, you can just donate to the people. And I prefer that kind of thing, or the kind of thing where like people just crowdsource things, crowdfund things, so that people who want the product have already paid for it ahead of the time, because you can advertise the thing in a different sort of way. That's something that might be a privilege that I can do from my lifestyle and the decisions that I've made. I understand people are in certain positions where that's not necessarily how they work, and so people have to be convinced through some maybe not so honest ways in order to actually get certain content, and I understand that's the way things work, but that's the understanding of it does not make the actual commercials. A few times I decide to watch maybe some live college football, some live American football game, or some sporting things, and I catch some commercial and just see how slick and done, like this Nas Daily type of cringy type of stuff that's put out there. And like, people watch this and find it to be genuine enough to actually purchase the things that these people are doing. And So this commercial, it starts off with a joke about, Giselle says something to him, and then Tom Brady's like, I have like 10 years, 15 years or something. Joke. Wonder if it was too close to home, this joke. And I wonder if the FTX kind of thing had something to do with the breakup. Probably not. I mean, these people are wealthy, multi-millionaires. They'll be okay financially wise, but it does not necessarily mean that they don't have feelings and all these kind of things in there. But yeah, so they have that. But by the by, people, stop listening to celebrities when it comes to advertising. I have a background in graphic design, and I've looked into advertising and animation, so storytelling. So I understand that with advertising, it's more about keeping something in your mind rather than being directly convinced that the product is something that you need. But some things, they initiate your need for this product, create a problem, then, you have that problem, then here's the solution to the actual thing. But when it comes to advertising, Are people still convinced by like actors? This person is a professional actor. This is a professional person who reads lines to make convince you that they believe someone, they are something that they're not, and you still see them in their normal person, in normal guise, and think they're being genuine about the product that they're selling. I understand advertising. Yes, you should advertise if you're doing something, a product that you think is positive. Like, I think this content is good. If you think this content is good as well, you can donate below. You can find links below to donate, or you can go to the merchandise store and buy some merchandise. You can help me out that way. Thank you very much. It will be very much appreciated. So I expect people who have their own product to actually sell their own product. But when somebody else does it, I really start becoming suspicious. Are you using that product? Have you used that product? How much invested are you into this product? If it stops, are you going to be on? What do you have to lose if that product isn't real? These are kind of things that I kind of wonder when people are advertising things. But here with Bankman-Fried, should we go back to Fried? I don't know. Bankman-Fried, maybe I'll jump back and forth. So Bankman-Fried was the face of FTX. He was out there doing a lot of publicity for it, talking to a lot of people for it. I think even recently he was up to speak to Lehman Brothers, or one of these big Wall Street type of people about his company, and you can hear some stories about, it turns out he was playing video games, League of Legends or things like that, while doing these interviews, while doing these massive calls and things. So he was kind of this guy, but he was still marketing things. And Inverse Kramer ETF, not Jim Cramer in parentheses, because you have to put that out there because of the spoof type of things. This is the kind of thing where people say like Jim Cramer, who does some kind of investment thing on MSNBC, or is it CNBC? One of those things. They say, okay, just if he says spend on something, you sell it. If he says sell something, you buy something. He's kind of those kind of people that people kind of bet against, and then they do this. So he said this, he posted this, and there's an entire thread you can find, again, links below, to a recent post that Sam Bankman-Fried posted on 11/10 of 22, so that's November 10th of 2022, and this was in 19, and a bunch of them when some issues were already happening with it. I think this was after Binance was doing some kind of thing to purchase some things with it, and then they decided to pull out because they found some questions, and that led to other people pulling out. Again, there's going to be links below to people who can analyze the markets more and go more into the details. I'm talking more about the general social, political, and other things related to, like, everyone was fooled about this. Everyone really fooled about this. But this is what was said in number 19, so there's 18 more before this where he said this. A few other assorted comments. This was about FTX International, FTX US, and the US-based exchange that accepts Americans, was not financially impacted by this shit show. It's 100% liquid. Every user could fully withdraw modulo gas fees, etc. Updates on its future coming. So this was after there was some issues, really. People were trying to pull out money. There was issues coming up with exchanges. People were not able, there was alarms being sent up. This was all happening at that time, and Sam Bankman-Fried still said this. And I don't really have too much economic knowledge, but I know enough about a little to know that I don't know enough about a lot. But something here with the liquidity, that just means that if you have a certain net worth, let's say I had a net worth of $1,000, chances are I could go to the bank and just remove that $1,000. If somebody needed that from me, I could just give them money directly. But a lot of people, especially when you talk about these massive companies, they don't really have this amount. The average bank, and the bank might have, say, okay, this bank has $100 million of people have actually invested into this bank. So that bank has that, right? But they only have to hold 10% of that money. They only have to have on their books, in their bank, in their vaults, they only have to have about $10 million. So $10 million can be withdrawn at any given time, and the rest of it is invested in other things. It's the same thing they do with companies, the same thing they do with individuals who have these large net worths. Chances are they don't have that money sitting in a bank like Scrooge McDuck where they can go dive around into it. That's in investments, and they say, okay, these investments are worth this amount of money. So in a situation like this, Bankman-Fried apparently was saying the $40 billion that was invested into his various companies were all liquid, like all those people could withdraw that money at the same time, but that is clearly not the case that was happening. This was the day before all this stuff came crashing down. So Bankman-Fried's post was on the 10th of November, and then the thing started crashing down on the 11th and the 12th. I think this was me already reading about it in the start of the 12th. I started the night, I was drafting some other thing, and then ended up, I was drafting something about the UN women saying, like, the percentage of women reporters who have been killed, it grew from 6% to 11%. It was like statistics, like you're not actually mentioning the number, like it could be less men who are being killed, and then now it's like a higher percentage. Like, say more people are more women. It's probably post that somewhere else. He might do a short video about that. Anyway, but with this one, so I just got derailed, and I was now into this rabbit hole. I'm just reading this stuff, just like, wow. This stuff just hitting me, like, and I'm worried. The state is going to do this. So a key thing to remember is watch out for claims that the Securities Exchange Commission and others that they now need to have more power to regulate and control crypto. Things like this from the New York Times. Binance pulls out of deal to acquire rival crypto exchange FTX. The rapid collapse of FTX, built by billionaire Sam Bankman-Fried, suggests that no company in the freewheeling, loosely regulated crypto industry is safe. That's the thing that I'd mentioned before in passing that kind of started this whole collapse. Or CNBC with this one. CNBC transcript of the SEC chair Gary Gensler, who speaks with CNBC's Squawk Box today, where Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Gary Gensler says things like, "The laws are clear, and look, the runway is running out. I mean, the American public and investors around the globe are getting hurt by a field that says they put a lot of fancy talk around it. Andrew, and the technology is interesting, and I taught at MIT, and I think there's some interesting innovations here. So, Gensler, who is in charge of the Securities Exchange Commission, he taught at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the same place that Sam Bankman-Fried graduated from. And there's this handy-dandy little chart that I found where Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, was an MIT graduate, and Gary Gensler, to the right of him, was the head of the SEC and a former professor at MIT, and he said he taught cryptocurrency out there. Then below him was Glenn Ellison, who's a professor of economics at MIT and the former boss of Gary Gensler, so somehow hired him. Was he hired? I think it was maybe the boss while Gensler was teaching at MIT, because now he's a professor of economics at MIT. And to the left and also below Sam Bankman-Fried is Carolyn Ellison, who's the CEO of Alameda, who dated Bankman-Fried and is the daughter of Glenn Ellison. Nothing to see here, you conspiracy theorists. Trust the SEC. They are working for the people and looking out for the people. From anyone who is mucking with their money of the people. People are getting hurt. We need the SEC to protect us. Unlike when the state makes money printers go brrr to the tune of trillions of dollars after shutting down their financial economies all around the world, that's for the greater good. The SEC totes would call out the state if the state was doing anything to harm the people. That's what you're supposed to believe. I really don't think that they think enough people are stupid enough to buy this. I don't know. So, far from everyone was fooled. I've said this over and over again, and I don't think y'all here have been fooled. Maybe some of you were. Like, as I mentioned, if you are someone that has been caught up in this, please leave a comment wherever you listen to this, or email me at contact@carbon33.com, and you can find some information about this. I'd be very interested in your personal stories and relations with this, because when it comes down to it, Sam Bankman-Fried and his crew were the key culprits. Regardless of who was behind this or who may have been interested, for the time being, Bankman-Fried and his core group were willing agents, in my knowledge, from the information that I've seen from this. They built something, ran something, marketed something that would not have happened if not for their actions. But this does not happen in a vacuum. I imagine this sort of thing happens in smaller groups, even at higher levels without the general public knowledge. Can involve state-level global actors using monies extorted, funneled, repurposed, and otherwise redistributed from the general public, as that is the nature of states. But this sort of particular action gets millions of people involved and rocks emerging markets like this cannot happen. And then here I'm talking about emerging markets, more like the crypto market is emerging rather than the term that they use for like developing markets in other countries. But this is the thing. I'm sure there's people who've invested in this all over the world. This is what I'm talking about here. To have this sort of global reach, this is something different. Other people had to directly or indirectly help Sam Bankman-Fried and his crew to actually do this. Many people you should no longer trust to know better helped him. Some of this many were just misguided and misinformed. I don't think this means they should be blameless for the continued involvement in this sort of repeated scamfraudery, though. These people could be too lazy to care, as they may feel that it's not much of a loss if this thing falls through. They're just rolling over generational wealth into the next thing. Could also be that they're incapable to check and they don't have the wherewithal and trust other people to manage this sort of thing for them. The following trend, sort of herd mentality, is not something exclusive to the peasantry. Having more bananas only shields you from the negative effects of being bananas. And from these thrones built on these massive amounts of bananas where you don't actually have to go out there and know what a banana thicket is or actually grow bananas or whatever. You just get the bananas supplied to you. You know you're going to have an endless supply of bananas. I can understand why somebody can look at hard work, genuine hard work out there, and project from their own lived experience that this is mostly just luck, that some people are just wealthy, like because they just happen to grow up in this pile of bananas and they haven't really done much to it, so those people out there might not be doing much for that either. There is a key cohort that I think we should all concentrate on that helped Fried spread this FTX kind of confidence game out there. The individuals in this group, by now, they should be beyond suspicion that they actually do know better and choose to participate with this regardless by disinforming others or choosing not to publicize the scamfraudery that they know of for their own calculations of what the greater good is, be it personal or universal. So winding down, and thank you all for listening. Is crypto over now? No, I don't think so. As I mentioned, I doubt this is some sort of like op by people involved, but even if it's a lower level op where some people kind of knew these things, these small cohort of people that I mentioned who might have known some time back and were still benefiting, so said, hey, let this kind of roll. It's not going to change the fact that there will be a push for more regulation that will cite this very scam without mentioning how many of the people pushing to be regulators, gatekeepers, and trusted warrants of cryptocurrency were the very same that platformed and profited from Sam Bankman-Fried, the companies he and others ran, and the schemes that he was pushing out there. At this point, you may as well make a list of all the people involved and generally avoid all things crypto-related from them for at least a decade. There are still some bright spots in the industry, though. There are individuals like this Jesse Powell, co-founder and CEO of Kraken FX and founder of Verge Arts, which I checked, and it's like some company where he just gives out like galleries and stuff. It seems pretty cool. He's also a former pro player of Wizard, the card game. I guess is kind of this thing. The world is still kind of good. There's people who are making actual professions playing games that we used to play as kids. That's kind of a cool thing. They're going further in the games, not just like a sport games, but little card games, video games, and things like this. That's kind of a positive world. That's still positive things that are happening in the world. Like, I know there's always been powerful people at top who play games with people's lives, but the fact that the people at the below, those peasantry type of people, can actually make a living playing actual kids games and things like this means like we're not in complete chaos Armageddon times yet. There's a thread here that there also links below, and this is part 7 of that thread, and he says, venture capitalists, the media, the experts failed, the quote-unquote experts. People torched their own reputations, vouching for individuals, projects, businesses they had not diligenced. Retail looks to you, presuming that you have done your job. You have a duty to be critical and withhold undue praise. And that's a very good analysis of what was happening. That's kind of what I was focusing in this whole thing. Like, these are the people. Who are these experts that we think are experts? What do they actually do? Do they just go to Twitter and see what other companies have done and just repeat what has been done? Do they just go and, who is this big company doing? Let's just repeat this company. Oh, this magazine quoted this person saying this, so I'm just going to quote this interview will be quoted this other person. And then now 5 people have quoted that one interview because of this one company on Twitter did this one thing. And then now that one other person will say, oh, 5 different people have talked about this being the thing to invest in, which was just like somebody from one thing and 5 different things, and somebody thinks it's actually confidence in. And that's how these kind of things work. But despite all that, this was not the SEC. This was not Gary Gensler coming out and figuring this out. So we don't need more regulation from the state. There's already so much regulation. The amount of money that's actually being spent on these people can't actually manage the regular stock market. So why should those people who have already bungled the stock market come in and add crypto to it? Why are they going to know what's going to be able to be done with this? This is still individuals. It's still people coming together and finding out that this was a scam. There's people out there who were not fooled by this. This was discovered not by the big institutions, but by regular people like you and me listen to this thing, individuals coming out there and spreading this information out there. And you can be part of spreading this information to help other people not get scammed in the future. So closing off here, were you invested in FTX? Do you know anyone that has taken losses or left early enough to profit? If you or anyone else is affected negatively, please consider that it may be a dark time, but there's still some positive things in the world going on that you can still be a part of. Reach out to those who may be in need or speak to those who will listen to you. I struggle to think of how the actual thing may feel, having never invested or had that much in the line of extra money to actually invest or lose in any sort of thing. But I've had some very dark times in my life, staring into the abyss that was all around me, that I found myself around it. But I made it out of mind through speaking with others, and all too often some decisions are made in these dark times that cannot be undone. So for those people out there, my thoughts go out to you, and I hope you can find the help that you need at this tough time. So at the end of this, I may update this post with a later one. Probably will be on the blog if I do something. I don't think I'll have another follow-up video for this or audio. It's going to be rentaton.wordpress.com. You can check out there, or carbon33.substack.com. You can also find stuff over there, posting different things on those locations, or you can just follow this, subscribe, like, share, wherever, and more updates will be coming from this. I'm all on different social medias, normally at Anuma Salis, which is AGNUMASALIS. With some of these, I normally add to finish off these things, the 3 questions, the Sowell 3, which is 3 questions by economist Thomas Sowell, who asks different people on the political left, specifically about economic issues, but I think economics is more about just the economy, the actions that humans make and the choices that they make. So that's part that we can be involved on different aspects of life. But it fits in this one. So when it comes down to like the SEC, that's what's mostly going to come from this. Who was fooled by this? What needs to be done to prevent these kind of scam fraudery things to go on? Is it the SEC? So with those 3 questions, I'm going to apply that to it. You can find links to the merchandise store on a Redbubble where you can find the Thomas Sowell 3. You can also find prints or merchandise with the illustration that's on the screen right now from the Anyone But K series. That's a speed drawing going on in this video version. And in this series, I post people. I did different drawings of people, and you can suggest other people as well, who I think are more appropriate to be on this Che Guevara shirt than Che Guevara himself, who Sam Bankman-Fried might not necessarily be as terrible a human being. He might not have directly killed someone, but he's probably been involved in destroying lives in certain ways, as I've mentioned before at the end of this discussion, and several times. It could be people who do drastic decisions based on what Fried did here. But more so, it's about the sort of people who I think Forbes might have been speaking about, who might have been carried along with falling for the persona that Fried put out there. This whole, most generous billionaire ever, and he's saying our cause, he's talking about climate change. These kind of people also follow Che Guevara without actually listening and understanding what this person is about. They hear certain things that they like and ignore all the stuff. It's for the greater good, so one of us, for the greater good. Those sort of people. So that's why Fried is here. I don't know, he might be relatively as significant depending on what happens from this, as someone like Che Guevara will see his effect going in the world. So the Sowell 3, as I mentioned, to me, economics is human actions and decisions people make. So these questions, yes, they're focused on leftist economics to cancel out those kind of things, those kind of thoughts. But here we go, leftist economics are being applied in this situation, asking for the SEC, asking for centralized power to come into this situation. It's compared to what? At what cost, and what solid proof do you have? So the first one, compared to what? What did Sam Bankman-Fried and the rest of the people do right here with FTX? What were some of the primary problems that he had here? As I mentioned, there's other links below where you can find people breaking this down a lot better than I can. Talked to my friend Steven, who's a day trader among other things, as I was editing and recording this, and he helped me a bit with this. For example, they said some of the reason they had all this power, all this money that in the company's valuation is because they were buying actual stocks of other companies and say, okay, this is what we're trading with and things like that. So for example, they said, okay, we have 650,000 tokens that represent the actual amount of stocks in AMC that we have, and we are trading those tokens around on our platform. But if you actually need those actual stocks, the actual money, we'll actually cash those in and give them to you. Turns out they didn't own any stock. These were made up tokens they just had on their own exchange. That's what they were actually pushing around. And they actually made up more tokens than they were actual stocks out there. So even if they were honest and didn't have just fiat tokens that just relied on people's confidence that they were actually backed by things, it's like they had 15 representations of X when only 10X existed. And these X, the stocks, those were outside. Those were in the regular stock markets. How come nobody in the SEC and these other people could check what was happening there and compare what was going on in FTX? So this is with FTX. This is supposedly a horrific thing that we need the SEC and the government to come in and step in. But when the government does this with fiat currency, how liquid are the world governments? Can these people, if you actually went in there and actually said, all the people out there, the money out there, is all these IOUs, or we owe ourselves this money, whatever. But there's more cash value, supposed tokens, and the dollar and the fiat currency out there in the world than there is actual things of value that we know of right now. Like, you can't actually just cash that in. It's just zeros in the bank, in the book. It's a confidence game in that sense. But we have the state coming in and holding up Sam Friedman for doing things that only the state can do. Is that what we're being told? Now, at what cost? If you have the state come in and do this and have their more power and control at this system, in crypto, what are we losing from the actual potential of the crypto markets? Majority of the crypto markets are still honest and still trying to actually grow this thing. what negative effect is this going to have in the future of having competitive currencies? Because before fiat currency, there used to be a time when there was actually several currencies out there. It was things like the gold standard. So what are we losing by focusing on what Friedman did with the help of other people under the auspices of these companies who are supposedly watching these things, these experts telling these things, but we're going to put the blame on this person and then bring the SEC in? That's not something I think would be a positive thing. I think it would cost us more than it would gain us. Lastly, what solid proof do you have? What solid proof do you have that the SEC will be the sort of people, or whatever is being proposed after this, will be the solution to actually solving this problem happening in the future from other scammers happening? Have you seen something with the state, with the government, with the way they run their own things, with the SEC, with all these people, that gives you confidence that these are the people that can be trusted to fix this in the future? Or have we seen situations over and over again where it's individual people that happen to come out and discover what's going on with these things? Something else happens, and then doing that investigation, somebody rats on the rest of it, or somebody stumbles across this thing. How many times do you find officials who actually go in and investigate and nip things in the bud before they escalate to this point? Or how many times do we see the same people who get shuffled around, who are involved in these things, and no, just give us time, forget us, trust us still, and all these things? That's something I see over and over again, and I don't have any evidence in my experience to trust these people that are mentioning and coming up and saying they're the ones who are going to be in charge of protecting us in the future from these kind of things happening again. So that's it for now, guys, gals, and everybody else in between. Thank you all very much for listening to this. As I mentioned, like, share, subscribe. Go check out the store, get different merchandise out there. You can suggest to me other people as well who might be in this Anyone But K series. That's it for now. Goodbye.